welcome to a new series. New series, same hand motions. This one is called Yours, and it came to me in a dream and also in a DM. And that's actually what I'm going to be talking about, which is how to discern what is yours as far as non-physical guidance, how to tap into and feel what is something that your spirit or guidance or higher self is trying to communicate, maybe something that your intuition is passing off, hey everybody, hey, versus what is your mind and or what is fear. And I do want to keep these on the shorter side. So if you have questions or something specific that you want me to talk to, try to get it out here fast. I'll get to it real fast. So let's take a few breaths and center. And hello, friend. Hey. We're going to center, and that is basically the tool that you'll need to do all other things. And when I'm communicating guidance or recommendations at this level, I generally come out the gate real strong, like this is. And if you've seen my other broadcasts, you know that there's an asterisk next to it and underneath it. And the asterisk is like, as far as I can tell, from my perspective, for me. And hi, good morning, afternoon, day. And really what I want to do is empower you to find what is uniquely yours, your process, your guidance, your system. And if anything, what I want to transmit is the possibility that it can be done. And so will the recommendations that I provide today be what is like true and correct for you? Maybe that's just your starting point. Maybe you do nothing with those. Maybe you push off of those and go in a completely different direction. That's okay. I really want to emphasize, like, we are individually guided from my vantage point, and I'm even open to that not being true for everybody always, but that's where I'm coming at it. So my caveat here is, like, I'm going to talk authoritatively. I'm going to say it's like this, because otherwise we'll be out here for days every time I'm like, so it seems from my perspective, maybe not, you know, like, so just allow that. That is the context, and I'm going to allow myself to speak directly. And again, my intention is to empower you to find what is uniquely yours, or to at least believe in the possibility of its existence, and that you can get just some you. So what is yours? So from my vantage point, and there we go with the caveats, I'm sort of seeing things like we exist in this field of information, and some of the information is relative to our unique point of consciousness, sort of like our central, like, kind of like our locus, our individual, like, I guess I see kind of a heart. So what is around that, and then my field of information, kind of like Linus's dust clouds in Charlie Brown, if you've seen it. So it's like, here's this kind of like cloud that is mine, and then the cloud that's mine exists in a cloud that is the building that I live in, exists in a cloud that is New Orleans, exists in a cloud that is the collective. And then you can also feel or tap into the clouds of others who are intimate with you. And it could be intimate emotionally, and they nowhere close to you physically, or they can actually be in your space. And all of that is information for you to sort through. And I cannot say enough about the limits of the mind, even though I try, and the mind is a beautiful tool. I'm using it right now. I have tried to live without it, and I wouldn't. There is something to be said about sorting information, labeling things, working with stuff at that level. Like, it's when you're using language and the mind, I recommend thinking of labeling less, girl, I love you, where are you at? Less like, this is good, this is bad, so much as like, this is yellow, this is pink. They're different, and yet you don't have to apply a moral judgment to them. You don't necessarily know the impact of that yellow or pink spot going forward. You can know at this moment pink doesn't feel that good, but you don't necessarily know, like, is pink like the whole story around it. So discernment is saying, like, I recognize that this is an experience that I'm having. I'm recognizing that this is different than this, but you're not taking it like the whole way through to like, this goes here, this is this, that's that. Like, there's a little flexibility when you look at things more objectively. And so if you're just joining, what I'm talking about today is a new series, because I don't have enough series, because I don't do enough cover art on Canva, and this one is called Yours, and we're looking at how to connect with your own guidance. And I started by saying, like, look, we exist in these fields of information, and you have a field that's kind of like yours, and then that field exists in other fields, and they're kind of like Russian dolls and a little bit more complex than that. And I would even go so far as to say, like, those Russian dolls are multidimensional or multiversal, and yet we'll just try to keep it kind of local, because that's what's practical, what's useful, and where you come in at things from. And then I talked about how your Russian doll kind of interplays with the other Russian dolls around you. And then I started to say about the limits of the mind. So we have been trained in our culture usually to think about what decisions we're making. Did you do the pros and the cons? Like, did you, were you logical? Well, those are great tools. Again, like, I wouldn't say put the mind down. I would only say recognize and appreciate its limits, and also allow this other part of yourself to develop, because when we're using our mind, we're only ever able to analyze the factors that we think to include, and whether or not those factors are accurate is a whole nother thing. But just like when we're looking at, like, what should I consider, and these could be decisions as simple as, like, do I continue dating this person, or should I go to the store right now? The mind can lay out information and kind of make value judgments based on the factors that it has and what it's been trained to think about, and how it's been trained to think about it, how it's been trained to weigh things. You don't know what you don't know, baby. You don't know. And human design is a great tool. That's an astrologically based energy mapping system that basically says, like, yeah, so for you want to learn how to hear or feel this part of yourself to make decisions. And so what I'm going to talk about is some level of that. And basically what I'm saying, like, so your mind, which is conditioned and trained, it's programmed just like a computer operating software, may have programs of evaluating information that aren't correct for you. And maybe they're not correct for you because they don't include an accurate representation of who you really are or where you really want to go. Maybe they have who you think you are, or who you think you should be, or where you think you should go, where you think you need to be, etc. And so when you're trying to make decisions, you're making it off of these abstractions of what you think things should be. And that seems to be how we often find ourselves in scenarios that don't feel that good, because it's like you're shopping for the wrong size. It's like in your head, you're like, oh, I wear a 6 for your shoes. But maybe you wear like a 7 or 9 or something, and so it's like, this doesn't feel comfortable, my life doesn't feel comfortable. Well, it's like, well, honey, you didn't get it for you got it off what you thought. And again, like, with all this stuff, everything I ever give you, begin by validating what you've done thus far. Don't make that wrong. If you were shopping for the wrong size, it's okay. Like, it's all okay, until here, like, this is now. If whatever you were doing before, like, let that be correct for that period. Let that be the chapter that revealed this chapter. You don't have to take in new information in a way that makes everything you were doing before bad or wrong. You can, but you're not going to get very much value from that. And also, the main point of that exercise would probably be to make better decisions going forward. And you're not going to really be able to do that if you go one eye on the rear view. You know what I mean? Like, you want to look out the front. So, I was saying about how using the mind, and then I went on Human Design Presents a Model, and then I was tying it back to, like, okay, so you exist in this field of information, and what I want to talk about in this series is really, like, how to connect with your own information. Oh my God. I train clients to do this. I train myself to do this. It's the coolest thing in the world, honestly, to be able to know, like, how to navigate information other than the ways that you've been trained to do it. Because again, like, you might have programs that in your mind that are like, the best that they could be for what they were, but they're not for you. And for you, like, you are always changing. And the premise of my work is, like, we have built our culture, our society, our lives around the idea that we're not an expression of the divine. Like, we're coming at this from, I'm human, I'm this, I'm that. And it's not that we're not those things. It's just that there is something underlying that. So all thinking beyond that point, from my vantage point, is actually based in misperception. And so when we're working at the level of identity, let's see, hold on. Before I run down that path, let me try to stay close to the path I was on. I'm gonna press pause on that one, just slide that off onto the table and go back to today, where we're saying, like, okay, well, you have this field of information. It's valuable to you because it helps you in decision making. It's also valuable to you, so decision making, unfortunately, like bringing back identity. Come here, topic I just discarded. Come here. There's a lot of fear because we don't identify as one with all of life. And that fear puts a lot of pressure on decisions. And, we kind of like come into this bad, or like could be bad, could be wrong mentality, and then almost stutter step and never grow forward because it's like, I don't want to get it wrong. And maybe that's not true for you. Okay, that's great. For me, I got to that place after making a bunch of wrong decisions and labeling them as such in a way that I was like, oh, I can't trust me. I'm going to fuck it up. And I'm going to fuck up them. And I'm going to fuck up this. I'm like, I'm grateful for the grace to continue to make mistakes forward and grow forward. And it's really only the idea that shouldn't have been that can prevent action forward. So it's not necessarily like what was or how you responded to what was, so much as your ideas about those things. And that's where we get locked in the mind. And that's when I'm talking about freeing people by reminding them they already are. It's sort of that, where it's like, you've got these ideas, it should have been different. Ideas. It is. And from here, you're able to move forward. And it actually serves the greater good for you to forgive yourself and to allow yourself to embrace well-being and to embrace greatness, no matter what came before you. Like, the more people who are in love with themselves truly in a way that's healthy, the more aware they are, the easier it is for them to see other people and to offer them space to be themselves, so holding yourself in self-punishment or guilt for anything to like this point, like, God bless you, you don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. So again, we're going to the field of information, and in this series, I'm going to talk about how to connect with your own guidance, connect with your own intuition, your spirit, etc. When I'm working with someone, I've trained myself to basically read, or invited myself to remember that I could either way, allowed my physical body to create a space, to create framework to do that, or I don't know what needed to happen really, but it's to say that it can be done, and you can do it for yourself. And the value is mostly, I'm saying, like, in decision making, but there are, beyond that is the sense of relaxation, because you're not trying to scramble through a bunch of information to figure out, like, how am I going to protect myself? It's like, you have a sense of connection to yourself. You have a sense of safety in knowing that you can hear you. You have a sense of relief in knowing that you'll trust you to hear you, and then you act and live from that place. So it's not necessarily about getting decisions right so much as like trusting you to be with you, and recognizing that most of the decisions that you're trying to get right are because you think that the conditions you would create through that rightness would offer you that relief that I'm talking about now, by being one with yourself. And I'm done. That's all I got. All right, this is going to be a super fun series. Yeah, it came to me in a dream last night, which is amazing. And then again, I just got it in my DMs, and I'm going to talk more about that process. And I'll also say, like, cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek, because, like, I did not want to be, I live in this space. Did I want to talk about it out loud? Not really, for a long time, because, I was like, oh, maybe they'll think I'm crazy. I got enough data, like, I might be. But I also feel pretty confident that I'm not. And I love that I ran up here to close with that. And here's what I'll offer beyond that is, like, as you step outside of your mind, as you step outside of the ways that you've been conditioned to think and feel about life, you will ask questions like, am I crazy? Because the way that you're operating will likely be different than the people around you. And it's helpful, I think, to bounce your personal reality off of the results that it's generating. And at the same time, like I'm saying, thank you so much, I'm saying that like there can be the facts, kind of like what I was talking about in the role that the mind plays in drawing out the data that you might want to analyze. And then there's the knowing that exists beyond those. So you can look at the fact sheet and say like, well, this is what it is. But there's also this sense of knowing that you can tap into that can help you make decisions beyond what you might be able to think of. And so this idea of like, oh, I might be crazy. Almost everybody I know who has taken their self-mastery path forward, allowed their path forward, it plays around with that question. And it's okay. It's okay. Like, you feel that way, it's okay. I recommend starting to open to the possibility that you can make connections or have support from people who are able to hear you and see you, so that, you know, it basically like mitigates the fear when you can be heard. It's almost like someone can be like, no, like I see it too, you're okay. And it helps you grow into and beyond what you have been trained to think. All right, would love feedback on the series. This is going to go on YouTube. Whoa, back, what? And I have some new offerings on my website. If you want to talk to me about those or anything else, send me a message or schedule an info call. I also have a donation button in the link on my bio if you want to support the free content. Okay, love you guys. Bye. Thanks for coming out.